Hello my friends, this is part 4 in a series of videos on developmental astrology. And what we're going to do in this fourth video is we're going to look at more of the powerful planetary configurations in the birth chart of John Coltrane, and then we're going to see if they flow into my chart. That's the basic concept. So what we do to understand some of the powerful vibrations in somebody's chart is we can go to their natal chart. And for something very quick, we have several different ways of doing this, but a quick way to do it is just to go to listings, harmonic patterns listings, this menu item, and then select number 1, and it brings up this listing of planets in 4 planet conjunctions in the vibrational chart, and we see here the ones with small orbs, 8 degrees or less, are in capital letters. So there they are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. So I just copied and pasted this into the PowerPoint. This is exactly the same thing that you see in the listing. And I put it in bold to make it stand out a little bit more. And so there are 4 of them. One is a Neptune, Sun, Pluto, Venus. Neptune, Sun, Pluto, Uranus. That's in 63 vibe, which is 7 times 9. There's this other one, Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter, Venus. And in 73 vibe, then the Venus, Uranus, Saturn, Mars in 59 times 2. And Neptune, Sun, Pluto, Moon in 315, which is 7 times 5 times 9, or 105 times 3. Now look at those 4. And out of those 4, which ones interest you the most? Well, the orbs are about the same, 7 and 8 degrees. Not much difference there. If there was one with a 1 or 2 or 3 degree orb, that would be by far stronger. So there's 4. Which ones interest you the most? There are 2 that I find particularly interesting. And I'll give you a second or 2 to think about it and see if you can realize why these 2 are particularly interesting to me. So this is a little practice in identifying powerful configurations. Which 2 of these 4 catch your attention? I'm not saying that we absolutely know that they're more important, but there is something about them that suggests that they are a little more fundamental. And what they are, the 2 that are most interesting, is notice that one of them is 7 times 9, right? The 63, 7 times 9. And the one here, the 4th one, is 7 times 9 times 5. So they both have 7 times 9. They both are combinations of 7 and 9, and one of them also has 5. So they're very similar. They're very similar. They're both built on 7 times 9. This means there's vibrationally something similar. If we look at the 7 times 9 chart, or even the 7 vibration, or the 7 times 3, some of these are appearing as trines, some as quintiles. There's some vibrational similarity. Let's look at the planets. This is Sun, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. This is Sun, Moon, Neptune, Pluto. So they both have Sun, Neptune, and Pluto in common. So when I look at the planets, I see even more strongly that there's a Sun, Neptune, Pluto thing going on. And that Sun, Neptune, Pluto combines with Uranus in a 7 times 9, and it combines with the Moon in a 7 times 9 times 5. So there's some similarities in those 2 configurations. I need to bring up the charts and look at them and get an idea of what's going on. So bottom line, and I put it in a bright blue color here, Coltrane 7 times 3, because in his 21 vibration, 7 times 3, we're going to see some kind of grand trine. So that's an easy way to look at it. I look for like basic, simple aspects like squares and trines. I'm interested in his 21 vibration because then I'll see the grand trine. And if I look at his 7 times 5, or maybe even 7 times 5 times 3, but you can look at it as 7 times 3 and 7 times 5 as basic configurations. In 7 times 5, I would see some 9 vibration or noviles. So basically 7 times 3 or 7 times 5 or 7 times 3 times 5 as well. So let's look at these. Coltrane's 7 times 3 chart. Let's look at it and see what we see. So this is one of the very powerful configurations for Coltrane. Let's pull up his 21 vibration. So what we're saying is that one of the most powerful configurations for Coltrane is, let's refer to our slide here so we can say this in the right way, the Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto Grand Trine, or I'll say it in the way that I presented here in the order. So let's look at the Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. Sun, Neptune exact conjunction, 7-minute orb, making a very tight trine to Pluto and a fairly strong trine to Uranus. So Coltrane has a Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto Grand Trine. That's fundamental. If that connects to my chart or your chart, then this quality of Coltrane is going to flow into you. And if you're a child or a teenager especially, it's going to influence the way that whatever it connects in your chart functions. The impact of people's music, their thoughts, their poetry, their writing, their vibrational presence is so powerful. Also, the South Node happens to be here as well, adding more power to it. And down here in the corner, by the way, we confirm what the mean node and true node is. True node, 2 Aries 25. That's the true node, which is the one we want right on this as well, adding even more power to it. We also notice some other configurations. Let's see how we explain it here. There's also a Moon, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, 60-60, 120. That's this, Moon, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn. Moon, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, 5 planets, spreading around a little bit. Spreading around quite a bit, actually. So the Moon sextile Mars is strong, Mercury sextile Jupiter is strong. It's spreading around. So not super tight, but it is 5 planets. The Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto interests me more because 3 of these are extremely tight. We also have the nodes involved, and the Uranus is fairly tight. This is a more solid, clear configuration. So I'm more interested in that, but I'm just observing what's going on in his very powerful 21 vibration. If these impact my chart, then during my early teens, these configurate, when I was listening to Coltrane in my early teens, these configurations would work their way into the expression of the planetary configurations of my chart. Do they work their way into my chart? They may or may not. We already saw that in the previous video in this series that Coltrane's 25 vibe flowed very strongly into me, had a big impact. That's enough to have a big impact. Not every important thing in a person's chart is going to impact you. But let's see, let's look at the 21 vibration chart. And I made a bi-wheel and I illustrated it. But to show you how I brought this up very quickly, I will select my 21 vibration chart. And now I just do a bi-wheel. So I can select bi-wheel from either 21 vibration chart. I will put Coltrane's 21 vibe in the center. The person influencing you is, you might say, more important. We're putting more emphasis on his configuration than my configuration. And so now I've got Coltrane's Sun, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus. That's the one I'm primarily interested in. And do these planets at about 2 to 3 degrees of air signs connect with anything in my chart? We do see that I have Neptune at 5. I have Mercury at 5. Is it oh, there's Venus and Jupiter at 2 to 3 degrees. So it looks like they get connected. And so what I do is I go to view this in graphics program, and then do some drawing of this to make clear what's going on. And here's what we see. There's Coltrane's big grand trine, the Sun, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus. What is it doing to my chart? Well, I have Neptune, Mercury, and Venus and Jupiter fairly close to that 3-degree area. Mercury, Neptune a little weaker, Venus, Jupiter more solidly. And what's going on? The Venus, Jupiter at, let's call it 3 degrees Scorpio, is square Coltrane's Uranus. So I drew this red curved thing around the outside and connected them. So my Venus-Jupiter conjunction is square his Uranus. Maybe I should say it the other way around. His Uranus is square my Venus-Jupiter. So one of these 3 points of the grand trine is squaring my Venus-Jupiter. Now let's take Coltrane's Pluto, another point, another second of the 3 points of this grand trine, and it is square my Mercury. And it's within orb, less than 2.5 degree orb, on a square. Not ultra strong, but it's there. So his Pluto is square my Mercury. If we go back to his Uranus at 4, it's more tightly square my Venus-Jupiter. But interestingly, this other point makes a square. And amazingly, the third point, all 3 points of Coltrane's grand trine make a square to one of my planets. His Sun, Neptune, at 2 degrees Libra, it's a little bit weak at a 3-degree orb, because this is almost 5, and this is 2, but it's still within the 4-degree orb. On compatibility, we usually like half the normal orb. We like to see it within 2 degrees. And this would be, let's see, with a 2-degree orb, it's closer to a 3-degree orb, so this is weak. But there's a weak Sun, Neptune square my Neptune. They're same planet to same planet, by the way. Neptune, Neptune. So what we're seeing is that Coltrane's grand trine, all 3 points, every one of those points makes a square to a planet in my chart. 2 of them not super strong, but his Uranus to my Venus-Jupiter, very strong, so he's connecting. I would say this is not quite as dramatic as the other configuration, the 25, but it's connecting. It is clearly connecting, and the consistency with all 3 making squares is important. Now, so he is connecting. His Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto is connecting with my chart. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. But let's see what the connections are. Here's Coltrane's other configuration, which is his Moon-Mercury conjunction. I put it in blue to distinguish it from the other one. His Moon-Mercury conjunction, let's see, this is sextile. His Jupiter-Saturn, but most of this is out of orb. It's mostly just Mercury sextile Jupiter-Saturn. And Moon is sextile Mars. So we have Moon sextile Mars. Mercury sextile the Jupiter-Saturn. And his Uranus, his Sun and Moon are conjunct, and they are trine his Moon Mercury. So actually this blue configuration is more powerful than I thought. It's more powerful than I thought. Let's go back and look at his 21 vibration chart. John Coltrane, 21 vibration chart. His sun and moon, let's see it. Oh no, it's my 21 vibration chart. My 21 vibration chart, I have a sun-moon conjunction, trine my Saturn. So I have a strong configuration in my 21 vibration chart. I have a nearly exact sun-moon conjunction trine Saturn. So now let's go back to the PowerPoint. And what's happening is that my sun and moon, this outer ring is me trine my Saturn, is on his moon Mercury. In fact, we have a moon trine moon. My moon at 13 Leo, trine his moon at 14 Sag. So this kind of spreading pattern in Coltrane's chart, it's strong, but it's not overpowering. That he has Mercury trine his Jupiter Saturn. He has Mercury sextile his Jupiter Saturn conjunction. He has moon sextile Mars. And the moon is conjunct Mercury. So it's a spreading 5-planet pattern. But this spreading 5-planet pattern does connect with 4 planets in my chart. My sun moon is trine his moon Mercury. My Saturn is conjunct his moon Mercury. And my Uranus is square his Mars. Those are all planets in his configuration. So his configuration, which is not extremely powerful, actually ties up with a more powerful configuration in my chart, that my sun and moon are square my own Uranus, and my sun and moon are trine my own Saturn. The bottom line is this: both configurations that are strong in Coltrane's 21 vibration connect with my chart, and one of them with a very powerful configuration. So there's a connection. I am very influenced by Coltrane. There is a flow, there is a connection, and there is a moon trine moon involved here. And what does it mean? Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto in 7 times 3 vibration is an inner, because 7 times 3 is inner, it's an inner connectedness to a mystical vision, Uranus, Neptune. A driven or compulsive plutonic Uranus, Neptune with the sun. This is an inner quiet connectedness. And Coltrane was quiet. He was humble. He was not very talkative. He was a deep, sensitive mystic. It's the Pythagorean part of him that's very strong. And that does connect very strongly with me. And the Mercury trine Jupiter Saturn, the moon, I keep saying trine, sextile. His Mercury sextile Jupiter Saturn, his moon sextile Mars. This intelligence, this reading. We always associate Mercury and 7 vibration. Reading, understanding, thinking, analyzing what's going on is connecting with my sun, moon, Saturn. So the thoughtfulness, the contemplation, it's like a contemplation on the mysteries and depth of things. It is connecting. So you will see these clear connections of these people that influence us, and they develop the way that we function. For me, this is a very important configuration involving sun and moon to my Saturn. Something deep, thoughtful, meditative, reclusive. He is connecting with it. He is, especially with that moon trine moon. I also put his Venus at 17 degrees. His Venus is involved as well. It's at the midpoint. All right, is it at the midpoint? It probably is. His Venus is probably at his Mercury, Jupiter midpoint. Yes, I can see that it is. be early 17. Yes, his Venus is at his Mercury Jupiter. His Venus is also involved in this configuration at about 17 degrees of signs, and his Venus is opposition my Uranus, which is Venus-Uranus, has a lot to do with music. So you see a musical connection there. Part of my being intrigued by these Middle Eastern effects in an unusual, creative way, deep, sensitive 7 vibration. We're seeing a connectedness. We're seeing, again, very strong connections. Now, this last step in the analysis is the most incredible. But first, we can just summarize. The connections are strong, but not extraordinary. They're not extraordinary. My Sun and Moon, as I mentioned, and Coltrane's Moon. My Sun and Moon, not just my Moon, but my Sun and Moon are trine his Moon. Well, when you think about it, that's not so trivial. 3 out of 4 of the lights are involved. Both my Sun and Moon trine his Moon. So you see, there is some significant connection. We still don't consider this to be extraordinary. Extraordinary, you'll see in a minute. The last one is really extraordinary, but it's solid, it's clear. There's connectivity. So there's going to be a nice connection. We have Neptune square Neptune. So my Neptune at almost 5 degrees Cancer, square his Neptune at 2 Libra, but it's weak. It's 3 degrees. So, there's some connectivity here. The Venus-Uranus. Oh, in both directions, I mentioned here. So my Venus, his Venus, he's in the inner ring, to my Uranus, and his Uranus is square my Venus with a 2-degree orb, which is the kind of orb we want in compatibility. So there's the music, deep 7 vibration, musical connection, rhythm at a deep level. His rhythms, all these drums and just very intensive percussion gets into me, you might say, because of these connections. And that's the fact there's a lot of aspects. And there are yods. His Uranus is in a yod with my Mercury sextile Neptune. So there's my Mercury sextile Neptune, 4 Cancer, 4 Virgo. His Uranus at 4 Aquarius is making a yod. There's all kinds of connections based on the fact that all these are around 4 degrees. So there's a good connectivity. Good connectivities in 7-based vibration. Very, very powerful connection that we saw in 25 vibration in the previous video. Now, we get into this next thing, but let's review before we get to the final connections between our charts, which is really amazing. But let's review first. I have many planets around 3 degrees of signs, making aspects to his chart. Okay, I think we've gone over all this. My Sun and Moon to his Moon. We went through all this. Neptune. Okay, that's all discussed already. So we have strong connections in 25 vibration. We discussed in the previous video in this series. Strong connections in 21 vibration. Next we will look at other strong vibrations for Coltrane's 35 vibration. Because remember, that was one of the very strong vibrations, 35. And these are the strongest. Okay, we've already seen amazing things going on. This is through the roof. Okay, get ready for this one. 35 vibration. Just to show you the individual charts, let's call up Coltrane's 35 vibration chart just by itself so it's not cluttered with all those illustrations. Coltrane has a Sun, Moon, Neptune grand trine with Mercury very closely involved. Both of his lights, Sun and Moon, and Neptune and Mercury. Very, very powerful grand trine. 4 planets tightly configured. And the Sun, Moon, Neptune extremely strong. Mercury also involved. Not quite as strong, but that's a very powerful configuration. And we're mostly interested in him, but let's look at mine as well. there's my 35 vibration, and I have Sun trine Moon. Because when you look at my 21 vibration, or let me show you this. Let's go back to my 7 vibration. Okay, this is my 7. In my 7 vibration chart, I have Sun trine Moon with a 9-minute orb. In multiples of 7, when we multiply this by 5, that 9-minute orb is still going to be, 9-minute orb times 5 is still going to be a 45-minute orb. It's still going to be under 1 degree. So in my 35 vibration chart, I still have a Sun trine Moon. Excuse me. Because as we go up to higher vibrations, this is 35 is 5 times larger orb than 7. Because it's 5 times 7. It's still less than a degree orb. So I have a Sun trine Moon. Interestingly, Coltrane has a Sun trine Moon. We both have Sun trine Moon in 35 vibration. That's interesting. His is making a grand trine with Neptune. Going back to mine, my Moon is involved in a T-square, kind of spreading grand cross, but not much else going on. But let's compare 35 vibrations, because 35 vibration is strong for Coltrane, and what we see is that let's see, my Mars and Saturn form a kite with this grand trine. There's so much going on here. Let's look at Coltrane's grand trine, this green triangle in the center. This grand trine connects with my Mars and Saturn. So my Mars and Saturn make a kite. See that kite? So the grand trine of Coltrane with his node and my Mars opposition Saturn makes a kite. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Let's leave this for another video because there's so much I want to show you. In addition to the 35 vibe, we're going to go up to the 105 vibe. And that's going to be the end of our thing. We've got about 4 more slides. We're going to look at 35, and then we're going to look at 105, 35 times 3. And it's in the 35 times 3 that's totally mind-boggling. That both lights, his sun and moon and my sun and moon, are all connected in the 105 vibe. So what we're going to see, I'm going to give you a preview to the last video, is that when we look at the 35 vibe, which was one of the most important configurations for Coltrane, we compare it to my 35 vibe, and then we follow these trines up to the 105, boom, it's then magical with this incredibly strong mystic rectangle that involves both suns and both moons. And what we have found as a preview to what we're going to go into more detail in the last video in this series is that these second order vibrations, where you take 2 prime numbers like 7 and 5, when you multiply them and you get something like 35, these second order vibrations, or what's also called quasi-primes. We'll talk about this term quasi-prime later on. It's a word that we've gotten from a theorist. We'll talk more about that in the future. But for now, we can call them second-order primes, where you take 2 primes and multiply them together, especially when the primes are not like 7 times 3 or 7 times 4. 3 and 4 are our basic numbers, but when you take 2 basic primes like 5 and 7 and combine them, that's where you might say the magic happens. That's where 2 essential qualities come together. It's like building a molecule from atoms. And when you take Coltrane's 35 and my 35, wow, there's something extraordinarily special going on. What's amazing is that people who come into our lives, it just seems incidental. Like, oh, my brother loves music and he plays all this different kinds of music, and he got into John Coltrane, and I happened to be in the house, and I happened to listen to it, and I happened to find it intriguing. There are no coincidences. There's nothing happening from out of nowhere. There's a intricate chemistry going on, and that Coltrane becomes a particularly interesting inspiration to me. Not extraordinary, not something that I think about every day, but the things that come into our lives, there are reasons, deep, profound reasons for it. And these second-order primes, like 35, are in some ways even more powerful than the individual primes. When you combine 5 and 7, you get the freshness, the lightness, the organic flow of 5, combined with the depth, the sincerity of 7, the stillness, the capacity for wisdom, or even a kind of mystical awareness, and the stillness. You combine those together, and you're getting the depth of Coltrane, plus the refreshing creative quality that really stands out in 25. But all of that comes together perfectly with my chart in 35. It's amazing. And what's really amazing is that I don't even think of Coltrane as like some singular hero in my life. But he was the person I thought of. He was the person who came to mind when I thought, who's somebody that was interesting to me as I was growing up? So these people that are interesting, that capture imagination, their impact is far greater than we imagined. Okay, in the last video in the series, let's take some time to analyze the detail of how the 35 vibration and the 35 times 3, 105, in Coltrane flows directly into my chart, and why he has an even more profound and larger impact on my life than I could have imagined. Again, one thing we're learning from this is that the people in your life, the poets, the musicians, the artists, the writers, whoever it is, their impact is much greater than we could have imagined. And they do influence the whole trajectory and direction of your life. Okay, I'll see you in the last video in the series, and we'll analyze this in more detail. Okay, thank you very much, my friends. God bless. Namaste.